Hi, Therese.
Well, hello, Natalie. How are you?
Doing great. I'm excited about this episode of Leadership Lore podcast. How
Mhm.
about you?
I am very excited because I think this is going to be a hard one for us to navigate and talk through. I think
Yeah,
for a lot of reasons.
agree.
So, all right. So our topic of the day is, and for the audience listening, we're asking you this question, right? So the topic is, as a leader, were you lying to your team when you said it was safe to give feedback?
Clutch the pearls.
Yes. So, all right. So the reason we kind of thought about this was, Natalie and I, we both we've been leaders, and we spend all of our time and our days with leaders. And this is something we've noticed is that we tend to use all the words and phrases that we should as leaders, like open door policy
Yeah,
and so on. But really, when it comes down to it, what we're finding is that that's not necessarily the case in reality. And there's a lot of different ways it plays itself out. So that's why we thought, hey, let's tackle this because this is something that we probably have either experienced from a leader or we are guilty of doing as leaders.
hmm
But it's certainly not something that we would openly talk about at
yeah,
work.
yeah,
So how do we want to tackle this one? Because I mean, I think we were both kind of excited yet a little nervous about talking about it. So
yeah.
how do we want to approach this?
Um, I think that we can start talking about different examples. When we picked this podcast title or this topic, I started to think in my head, like, what are situations I've been in where I've kind of pinged like, "Oof, that's not what you said last week," or like, it's nice that you say it, but in practice, I'm experiencing something else. And then also taking a little bit of self-aware looking at ourselves and thinking, "When have we done this?" Because the question,
Yeah.
"Are you lying?" is kind of like a little tongue in cheek because, of course, we don't think we're lying when we say that, but maybe the real question is, do you know what the hell that actually means? Do you
Yeah.
really know, and are you willing to put in the work of what that means? Because it is work when you say, "Come on in, let's talk about your issues." What do you
Yeah.
do
Give me
then?
feedback. I want to hear your feedback. Tell me what I could do better.
Yeah.
Tell me how I can help. And I think a lot of times this comes as a result of, the leadership playbook, right? The leadership playbook, which
Yeah.
is again, you know, um, having an open door policy, creating, we hear this term a lot, psychological safety in the workplace.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do all the things that we read in a book somewhere, or they told us during orientation, or that Oprah told us, or whatever. But the reality is, I think, is that we're also people with feelings
Mhm. And
and
fears.
sometimes and fears and anxieties. And
Mhm.
so when you put all that into the pot, yeah, we're saying all the things that we should be saying, but I don't know that we actually mean it to our core.
Yeah.
Um and so I guess I'll kind of just kick it off, I guess.
Mhm.
I know for a fact that there were times when I was in leadership roles where I believed it. I totally believed when I said, "Hey, look, I want to hear what you have to say matters. You're an important part of the team. Bring your ideas, bring your thoughts, bring your feedback because it's important for me to know because I might have blind spots." I believed it. But there were absolutely times when the feedback I got was about me at times and just my presence as a leader. And I got offended. I was offended, and did it impact how I treated that person after the fact? Sometimes. Did it impact how I behaved? Sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, did I look for feedback from that individual in the future? Maybe not as
Less.
much,
Yeah.
not as much. Yeah. And I think it's because I was dealing with my own low confidence. Um, if the feedback came from somebody I deemed as a high performer, I looked at it as a threat. And I don't think I necessarily had the tools to respond to that feedback in the way that I probably should have. So what I was left with was an emotional response.
Mhm.
And it didn't always go well at times.
Yeah. I think and that's a wonderful way to summarize what we're gonna talk about because so much of it comes down to, like you said, confidence, but it's also that, like, emotional regulation, having the maturity and the emotional regulation to hear something and to respond thoughtfully and not react or shut it down, because that's really where this goes wrong. Yeah, give me your feedback and then argue it, right? Tell me what you think, and then I'm going to argue every point as if it's not a true. It's like your experience is invalid, and
Right,
that requires requires a lot of intentionality. But it's like you're hitting pause again to not just react. We've talked
right.
about that a few times
We
in this
did. We have.
podcast
Yep.
because it
Uh-huh.
really does that's what it takes to be a great leader is that emotional maturity and regulation. Pause.
Mhm.
And feedback really tests you on those things.
Yeah. So, why do you think we unintentionally lie about that?
Um, we don't know how to handle no, let me rephrase that. I think it's because we're afraid of hearing things we don't wanna hear. We don't know how to handle things we don't wanna hear.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
also just messes up the plan, right? Like, if you've got a plan in your head and you're like, "Let me just fricking execute on this plan," that's that whole difference between being a leader versus being an individual contributor or some sort of somebody in an executing position. You as the leader, you're the strategy, you're the vision. You need to hear these things because your job is not to just execute.
Yeah.
And that's the shift. So I think it probably is more common amongst newer leaders also. It's a harder thing to take in stride.
Yes-ish. Yes. Yes. I think you're right. As far
But you
as
know
it's
what?
more,
I don't have research. I don't know. We should look it up.
I think it is definitely I definitely think new leaders struggle with that for sure, especially if you don't have mentoring, you don't have, like, some of those things. Um, but I see this in tenured people, I see this in owner-operators, I
Yeah.
see this I think it just really I think it's a combination of understanding it's a skill set, some of it is emotional intelligence, and some of it's personality. But I wanna flip this around for a second because also been in situations where, I'm getting feedback about everything under the sun and the moon and the stars, and
Yeah.
h I either don't care, it's not relevant, it's coming from people that I'm like, "Okay, you're always going to have a problem with everything that we try to do." So, when it comes to things like feedback where you're in the spirit of trying to create psychological safety, for example, do you think we should have parameters around, like, what kind of feedback we want or how to deliver that feedback or, like, how what is the
Yeah.
guide? Like, what are we saying to the team in terms of, "Yes, I wanna hear your feedback," in a way that kind of make sure that it's feedback that, has value, I guess? I don't know, that may not sound
Yeah.
right because
I,
everyone's gonna feel like their feedback is valuable,
yeah.
right?
I get what you're saying. I think it's really like, does all feedback matter all the time? And the answer is no. I mean,
Right,
no, of course not. But there's
right.
two separate sides to that coin. As the
Mhm.
person giving the feedback,
Yeah,
are you able to give feedback that you think is actually relevant, or are you just venting and giving your opinion about things that you want? And then on
uh-huh.
the flip side, if you're the person receiving the feedback, is this feedback? Do you need feed? Is this the right time for you to accept feedback, or yeah, really to is it the time to take feedback into account and to change anything, or are you operating solely off of what you know needs to be done? Ooh, this is tricky because
Yeah,
I can think of 1,000, like, caveats to all of this. Why do
right,
we always
right.
talk about this kind of stuff?
I know, but the thing is, there's not like this one approach to any of this, and I think
No.
that's why we were like, "Ooh, this is gonna be an interesting topic," because as you're talking, I'm like, "Okay, I'm thinking about this one time when I was getting ready to go into this big meeting. I was not well, I was a leader,
Yeah.
um, but I was going into this meeting with my leader, and we were going in with executive leaders.
Mhm.
And what my leader told me right before walking into that meeting was, "You don't you don't speak, you don't offer feedback unless I ask you for your opinion or
Mm.
feedback." And I guess from her perspective, she wanted to control as much as she could in front of executive leaders, but from my perspective, I felt like she just kind of shut me down when I was initially going into that meeting thinking I was bringing some valuable
Yeah, why were you
information,
there? That
valuable thoughts, but I was kinda, like, shut down. So, I mean, there are different scenarios and different environments where we say, "Oh, it's safe," but not really.
yeah.
What's your thought on that one?
Um, a whole bunch of thoughts flowing in at once. I think that man, so much of this comes down to individual judgment, and I think that's what's the hard thing to talk about is, like, judgment
Yeah,
in the moment. I really
yeah,
think giving and taking feedback, you've gotta be good at judging in that moment, and
mhm,
often, I have found myself in situations in leadership roles in my career where I would think I wanted feedback, so I would ask people for their feedback, and then I would think, "Well, not like that. I
mhm.
don't want feedback like that,"
Yeah, I don't want
or,
that.
"That's not the feedback I want." Like, I think that is part of that's another, like, if we're gonna make rules to giving and taking feedback. You ask for it, you gotta hear it. And you
Yeah,
don't have to act on it, but you have to be willing to listen, and I think that's where it often falls apart. People don't we wanna argue it and shut it down.
wanna justify, though. We
Yeah,
wanna justify the actions that you're giving feedback about.
yeah,
Um, we wanna
yeah.
justify it. So, okay,
Are we
I
lying? No. Are we doing it well? Also, probably
probably
no.
no. Yeah, probably no. So, okay, so you do a lot of executive coaching.
Mhm.
How would you advise someone in terms of this? Is there a specific way that you give feedback or receive feedback, I should say, or ask for feedback?
Yeah,
Give, ask, and receive. Jeez.
mhm. Often what I find is that people do not ask questions. A lot of
Mhm.
people, when they get into really advanced leadership positions, you think it almost feels like you are imposing on the people who are maybe lower level in the hierarchy of you to ask them questions. So then
Yeah.
they don't feel the people in return, the people who you would be asking questions to, don't necessarily feel comfortable giving you feedback because you've never asked for their opinion before. It
Mhm.
really is a give and take. You cannot expect people to give you honest feedback if you have never shown yourself open to hearing what they have to say first. And that doesn't mean you're not going to hear feedback from some people. There are going to be some people who are very ballsy and are just going to go right out and say it. Um,
Yeah.
and that's great. That in most cases we need those people. But as the
Mhm.
leader, as the person who is as the executive, have you prepared yourself. Ooh, actually doesn't matter if you're executive or not. Have you prepared yourself to hear something you don't like
About you.
about you and your decisions? Yeah. And the answer is probably not really.
Although I bet you if we were to put out a poll right
Oh,
now,
they'd all say
most of them would
yes.
say yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes. But I think something else that's important with giving and let's particularly about receiving feedback is we know, I don't you follow Gallup. There's the
Yep.
newest Gallup research that has come out that we are even employees are even less engaged than they were last year or the year before or forever. They are the least engaged they have ever been. And it really
Yeah.
all comes down to your manager and your supervisor. And if you
Mhm.
work for somebody who shows you are a part of this team, I want your feedback. We're actually going to listen to the things you have to say. We may or may not take them, we may not put them into action, but we're going to hear them.
Mhm.
That that makes a huge difference when it comes to employee engagement, and the leader has a lot of control over that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And
didn't go
you
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. What
Mm-mm.
were you gonna say? You didn't what?
I didn't read the whole study. I just read the snippet though.
Oh, that's
Caveat.
okay. That's fine.
I have
You
it
sounded like
saved.
it sounds great. Um,
It's a
but
tab.
that actually brings another kind of feedback to mind though, because how many times, and I'm asking this, I'm going to ask you, I'll answer, but I'm asking the listeners, how many times have you taken a pulse survey, an engagement survey, whatever gap analysis type survey, and not a damn thing came from it?
Not a damn thing. Yeah,
How many times?
yeah, and, being on both sides of that, I'm the former, co-chair of the employee engagement committee during COVID, which is part of how I ended up here.
Yeah,
Um, you see I had to take it. I helped create, I had to take the survey, and then I had to help fix the survey. Had to act on the other side of it of what do we do? And I guess that really also goes to the other angle of giving workable feedback is very important. Um,
yeah,
feedback
yeah,
that somebody can take and take some action on. But when you subject yourself to those surveys, because they're not long, usually they're not short. There's usually a lot of questions.
yeah,
If you go into it and convinced you will not be heard, what you won't be heard. You
yeah.
won't be heard. If you go into it thinking you're not going to be, and I we need when we get to the point where we have people on this as guests,
Mhm.
I know a guy who creates these employee engagement surveys for a living.
Yeah,
Whew, let's bring him on here and grill him.
yeah. So so I have a client where we just started working together, and he was saying that he was getting ready to like push out this engagement survey because it was very important to him that he understood like what what the people in the department needed.
Mhm,
And so they hadn't done one for like 10 years. So he was like, it's time. I'm going to do an engagement survey, like an engagement slash like satisfaction survey slash asking like what you want kind of
mhm,
survey. Like, what do you want to see us doing more of, less of, or whatever. And he was getting ready to push send on this survey. And I said to him, because we just started working. So I haven't even had a chance to dig into anything yet. And so I asked him one question, and I asked him, "Okay, so you're sending the survey out. Do you have the infrastructure in place to respond in a way that makes people feel heard?" And he said, "Well, I mean, not really, not yet, but we just wanted to probably just kind of get an idea of where people's heads are."
mhm.
And I said, "So respectfully, I would advise that you wait
Yeah,
because they waited for 10 years. What's another month? It ain't that serious. It's
yeah,
okay." And because unless you have the support, the infrastructure, the kind of like the people and the system in place to respond and actually act on some things, or even understand like, or even know like what you're willing to act on versus what you're
mhm,
not willing to act on, it's gonna be a waste because you don't wanna get all these results and realize, "Well, damn, we
yeah,
can't do, like, 90% of this because we don't have the budget, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the people, we don't have." So that means you're asking the wrong questions.
mhm,
And I said, "Where'd you get your questions?" "Oh, ChatGPT." I'm like, "Okay, no, no, let's not do that, please."
yeah,
So I share that to say that oftentimes I work with clients who it's like they're following the leadership playbook,
yep,
right?
yep,
Say we have an open door policy, we create psychological safety, we send these surveys out so
yeah,
we know what's going on with the departments and the organization, but there's such a lack of follow through. So it's not just one on one feedback that we're
mhm,
lying about, it is organizational feedback that we are
yeah,
lying about with good intentions
yeah,
because we're not prepared to respond or
yeah,
act. So what the hell is the point?
yeah. If that survey slash feedback is not going to deepen the level of psychological safety, you are not prepared to ask it. And that's actually
Right.
something that working with some clients I've had where I have, Are you prepared to talk about this topic and get feedback without arguing your points? If the answer is no, you don't ask. Don't ask. But you gotta get yourself to the point where you are there, because otherwise then you're just a dictator. But if you
Yeah,
aren't ready, it's okay to hit pause on that. Get yourself to the point where you can hear feedback without arguing it. Because when you start arguing it, you are invalidating the other person's experience, and boom, shut down, quiet quitting slash loud quitting slash you lost that person.
exactly. So, Natalie, have you ever lied?
I mean, not on purpose. But I do have situations where I remember um asking for I used to do this thing at the end of the team meetings that we would have, and when they were virtual and when they were in person, we'd have open mic. Pass
Mhm.
the mic, and it would be you could share anything you wanted. It could be you could provide unsolicited feedback. You could tell me about your weekend plans. You could share a funny story that happened that week at work or at home, didn't matter. Every now and then, people would use that open mic time to go back to a thing that we were talking about that I had decided we were done talking about. You know what I mean? And, but that's kind of the point. I built in this sort of like reverse kill switch where somebody else could turn it back on if it wasn't done. And there were several times where I was like, I said all the things that were great, but were intended to stop it. Like, hey, we'll take this offline. Let's catch up afterwards and bring this up. And like, yeah, those are great things to say. And in some cases, they're super appropriate, but I didn't follow up with it. We didn't put that in the parking lot, we blew that thing up, like, we did not talk about it again because I didn't want to, and,
Yeah.
it's not to say that 100% of the time that was the wrong thing to do, but I know for sure there were things that were just felt annoying to me. I don't have a better reason than, like, God, I've moved on to the next. Haven't you moved on
Yeah.
yet?
Can we
But,
stop
like,
talking about this?
as the
Yeah.
leader, you don't get to determine when people stop feeling a certain way about something. And if you were trying to bring them along and keep them engaged, you gotta if you're giving people the mic, you gotta be willing to listen to what they're gonna say.
But when do you say when though? Like when is it that okay, we beat up this horse
Yeah,
enough. It's dead. It's gone. It's done.
yeah.
How do you when do you say when?
I
How do
have
you approach that?
Yeah, I have actually said that in meetings about like, okay, you personally have brought this up a few times. What else do we need? What is it that you think I need to hear that I haven't heard? Or what do you need to hear from me that you haven't heard? What has nobody brought up yet that is still just real what is the sticking point for you? Let's discuss it.
Yeah.
Ooh-wee, that puts a person on the spot, but also puts me on the spot because if I'm going to call somebody out like that, I better
Yeah,
be
you gotta be
damn
ready.
sure I'm gonna do something about it and be
Yeah.
ready to listen.
Yeah.
I didn't do that many times, but there were a few times that
Mhm.
I, like, you know,
Yeah.
it's it's startling, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Just and I think this also falls into the difficult conversations lane as
Yeah.
well. It's just so interesting to me. There's so many leaders out there who've been in leadership for a long
Mhm.
time and still struggle to navigate um, some of these things. And it's funny. I posted one of the clips from our one of our previous podcasts. I can't remember which one it was, and I was talking about how I had a hard time accepting someone's resignation, and someone commented on that, and they made me mad.
Yep.
I think I texted you,
Yep.
but essentially the person said like, well, this was a difficult conversation, and if you can't have a difficult conversation, then you should not have been a leader.
Mm.
And I thought that was such an interesting point of view, and I bring it up to say that I think these are all skills that you can learn, and no,
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, there are some leaders that show up and they just know it all, and they're just awesome and they're great, and I love that for them. But for the most part, most of us are out here just trying to figure it out
Trial
because
and
this
erroring our way into a leadership position.
yeah, because you can read all the leadership books you want, but when you're in front of Sally and Sally is acting a damn fool and you're trying to navigate it or you're getting feedback from Tom that, hurts your feelings or whatever, there's no real playbook for that. It's a skill set that, you learn over time. I
Yeah.
think with some mentoring, I think with some maturity. And so I brought that up just because I thought that was such a harsh thing to say that if you're unable to do this, then you shouldn't be in leadership. I actually disagree. I think it's a learned skill that you can't learn until you're in leadership.
I think it's the willingness to learn, just like
Yeah.
it's the willingness to hear feedback that you don't like. It
Yeah.
is it goes back to that very beginning thing we talked about of, like, emotional maturity and regulation.
Yeah.
Can you put yourself in the fire? It's uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
still be present without shutting it down. And that's where feedback goes wrong. When receiving feedback goes wrong, when we shut it down instead of getting curious.
Yeah.
Get curious about the feedback. Get if someone's willing to put themselves out there, and also they might not expect you to listen to their feedback. So you need to surprise them and say, "Hey, I saw that thing that you wrote down. I would love to hear more about that because I don't want you to feel that way, and I want to make sure there's no
Yeah.
that you don't feel unheard."
Yeah.
Call them. Call them out, let them explain, and get curious. You just really have to be curious. Feedback without curiosity is just like you're either gonna rip it up or you're gonna listen to literally everything.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh,
And I'm only doing that because I thought of one, so I'm already prepared.
damn.
So what was one time as a leader that you got feedback from an employee that you really struggled with? Like you really struggled with it. What's
Mm,
like they got to they were like, yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
I think I may have talked about it before, but it's something that changed me as a leader was I was in not so many words told that I was chaotic and following too many shiny objects. And like looking
Mm.
back now, yeah, of course. Now we're
Yeah.
business owners and we get to do that all the time.
Yeah.
But it really is when you're leading a team of people who really, really value consistency and steadiness. And it wasn't that there was a lack of follow through. It was almost like we're following through on goddamn everything. Everything we're doing. And I was told like we really need some stability here and it seems like there are too many new ideas or too many different things we have
Mm.
to chase. And I think where that came from was I wasn't using discernment as to what I was getting from my leadership. And that's another lesson to learn as a leader is listen, your leader can tell you to do a whole bunch of stuff, but if you know it isn't right, you have to push back a little.
Yeah.
And I think
Mhm.
I was allowing my ability to bob and weave and my comfort with inconsistency. I was using that almost as a crutch instead of doing the more difficult thing of telling my leadership, I do not think that's a good idea. And to some, I mean, I got much better at this as I got older, and I will not do that.
Yeah.
And that's setting
That's
yourself up for for some gunfire, but it still is the truth. And that's what my team was telling me they needed. And I didn't like it. It sounded boring. It wasn't fun.
yeah.
And that was hard for me to hear, but I didn't deny it, but I didn't like it. So
Yeah.
I think I said, "Can you give me examples?" And then they gave me like
Mm.
1,000 and I was like, "Oh, shit." Oh, jeez, oh, Pete's. So,
That's funny. That's funny.
yeah.
All right.
How
So
about you?
mine
So I wanna
so
know yours.
yeah, so
When did it go wrong?
this one stuck out and stuck with me over the years. Now, I don't remember the exact like words or the specific scenario, but it was all around my personality.
Mm,
And so you know me. I am sarcastic, rough around the edges, a little crass at times.
you
Um,
real girl.
okay, well, I kept it too real
Yeah.
at work one day as the leader.
When keeping
And
it
I
real goes
is
wrong.
wrong. Exactly. Me. But I used to I remember the scenario. I don't remember specifically what I said, but I used to do morning rounds. I would every morning. I would kind of work the room, go see all my team, check in, what you do, and in doing that, like, it's just my personality, right? Whatever they're saying, I'm, like, tapping into it, and we're joking around, and we're having a good time, whatever, and I had this one employee, she was really into her fitness, and she was preparing for a competition, which I was
Ooh,
like, such a badass, right?
yeah.
Loved it. I was all about it, but she mentioned something, I don't remember what it was, and my response was, like, I was being funny, um, and, everybody laughed, yada, yada, whatever, moved on, and then, like, I mean, it really apparently it really bothered her what I said because I think it was, like, a week after
Oh,
when we were
wow.
having our one-on-one, and I was just doing my normal, like, "Okay, do you have anything for me?" Whatever, and she hesitated, and then I'll never forget this. It makes me just I hated myself in that moment so much, but she said, "You know, last week when you came and I mentioned this thing to you, and you responded in this way, you really offended me. You really, really offended me. You made me really embarrassed and you made me feel a lot of shame."
Mm,
And that one just like,
yeah,
because here's this person that I actually was like, she's such a baddie. Like I loved and I thought I was being supportive. I thought I was lightening the situation and I was just being myself, keeping it all the way real.
yeah,
And instead I was offensive and I was hurtful and I made this other woman feel shame about her body, essentially
yeah,
was what it was. And it I felt like crap, and I wasn't offended or I wasn't defensive. I think I was just more like just devastated.
yeah.
And my reaction in that moment was, I mean, I apologized to her, and I mean, I got up, I walked around, I sat next to her, and I just said to her, I am not going to make excuses for my behavior. But what I will say is that that was never my intention.
Mhm.
And what you've taught me is that, although I am who I am and my personality is what it is, there is a time and a place. Um, and that was clearly not the time or the place, and I didn't mean it. And
Yeah,
she accepted my apology, and we were good after that. And I mean, she and I still keep up with each other now, and whatever. But that was one moment that really stuck with me, and I feel grateful that I won't say she felt comfortable bringing me that feedback because it took her a week.
yeah,
And even when she was giving it to me, I could see where she hesitated and she wasn't quite sure. But she just flat out just kind of so I'm really proud of her for doing that.
yeah,
But in that moment, I felt like the biggest jerk in life. And
yeah.
as a result of that, I didn't keep it real ever again. I was like, "Mm-mm. Good
And that's why
morning.
we
How are
started this
you?"
podcast.
Yeah. "Good morning. How are you? I have no feedback. I have no comment on
Yes.
what you're doing this weekend." But it taught
Your
me just
life
like there's
is
a time and a place,
neutral.
and yeah, there's a time and a place, and it's great to have personality and bring personality because we're all different and it adds a certain something to
Yeah,
the culture. But I think it was a lesson for me in understanding that there's an appropriateness to the realness,
yeah.
and you gotta know how to balance that, you
Good on
know?
her for figuring out how to bring that up to you
Yeah.
and provide you with that valuable lesson.
I know. Gosh, people probably
Yeah.
think I sucked as a leader back in the day. Well, I
People
did in many
I mean,
ways.
yeah, and I
Yeah, I
remained
did.
a little bit too chaotic for your average, healthcare setting right up until
Yeah,
the day I left,
same,
you know? And I and
same.
it but it taught me a lot about myself. If I had only been working in places where people gave feedback just openly and like a high conflict kind of situation where you're hearing feedback all day and people were just telling you things, I don't know that I would have taken it as seriously. I think I would have like tried to qualify it as like, well, that's just how this place is.
Yeah,
And that was not the situation of the place I was working in any place
yeah,
really. Um, and it makes you introspective. Good feedback, actually, it doesn't matter if the feedback is good or bad. A good leader will find a way to take feedback and be introspective about it. Even if like you're introspective, you're looking at it and you're like, no, that ain't me. That's fine too. Um, but you have to be willing to look at it.
Yeah. And I think again the thing I just want to highlight once again is a lot of these scenarios, I mean today we're talking about lying about saying that it's okay for feedback. Like the other time we are talking about whatever we are talking about. I think I don't even remember
I don't
because
either.
I'm 48, so
We have a long
it's a
list.
lot going on. But my point of that is to say this concept or this thought of hey, you bring all of these things to your leadership role, all these skill sets. I want to call BS on that a little bit because I think a lot of, especially if you're new to leadership, a lot of your skills are in theory.
Oh yeah.
Until you get into leadership, until you have to deal with people and personalities and learning how to get people to perform and do things you need them to do, and but you're not their mom or their
Yep.
dad. All of it is theory
Yeah.
until you actually try to have to apply these things. And so a lot of these concepts you learn on the job, like you learn as you go. I don't care how many books you read. I don't care how many Tony Robbins seminars you go to. I don't
Mhm.
care. I don't care. Like until you are in a situation where you've got someone at their desk and they're crying and you're trying to figure out how
Yeah.
do I manage this? Or they show up in their house shoes and you're like, how do I tell them they can't wear their house shoes at the job? Like all these until you're actually in it, everything is in theory.
Yep.
And
It
that's
really
okay.
is. Well,
It
you
really is. It's in
it
theory. It's
and I think I love that point, and I think that also goes to if you're receiving feedback from your team and you know that they have never been in this leadership position, doesn't mean they don't know what they're talking about. It may mean that the way they're presenting it is not the way that you know it'll actually play out, or you have to consider the source. My dad always used to
yeah,
say that all the time, but
yeah,
consider the source, but also consider the source's experiences, and
yep.
then look at it from that perspective. What are they
Different
seeing at their
lens.
level?
Yeah. We all have
Yeah.
a different lens.
Yep.
And maybe it's an opportunity to show them your lens. But
Yeah.
also just like don't be too hard on yourself. Like try to learn from it and again, I just go back to until you get into a leadership role, everything is theory.
Mhm.
Until you are actually in front of a human being and you have to make a decision to terminate them, it is
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
It's the
Open
it's play
door
play
policy is theory.
until you actually open that damn door
And then you're
and
like,
somebody
"Oh,
walks in.
I didn't
Eh,
think this was gonna happen."
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think
Ah.
that
Mm.
might be a good note to end.
I agree. It's all theory,
Yeah,
but then it becomes real and you gotta address it.
and then you mess up, but that's okay.
And then you just do it again, slightly
Just do it
better.
again. Yeah. Like I used to say, my friends and I used to say, when you get a leadership role, like, they don't know that you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Nobody
They're not gonna know
knows.
for at least 6 months, so you got 6 months to figure it out.
Just gotta stay a couple steps ahead. That's all you gotta do.
Yeah,
That is so
exactly.
true. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
Alright, well, we'll end on that.
Wonderful.
Looking forward to everybody's feedback.
Yes. Ooh. We want listener feedback for real. Get real with
Maybe,
us. Nah, let's
maybe.
hear it. Let's hear it.
I only
Maybe
wanna
we'll
hear the
do
good things.
a live reading. You and me will read the feedback and be like, listen to this BS. Just
Right?
kidding.
Or like the person that called me a dumbass on Instagram when I did one of my clips from our podcast.
And be like,
I don't
what's
want that
their
kind of
name?
feedback.
I'm gonna look them up on LinkedIn. What kind of
Yeah.
experience do they have? No.
Listen, we
Listen.
don't need that kind of that's not valuable,
We
okay?
we weren't gonna end on this bitter note.
I know, but I'm bitter, damn it.
I just got more bitter.
Anyways,
Thank you, dear listeners. We do
yes,
really want your
we
feedback.
want
Thank
your
you.
feedback. Yes, thank you. All right,
All
signing
right,
off.
let's wrap it up.
Yep.